Hi ho, Kermit the Frog here. Oh, wait, wrong video. Wrong video. Let's see YouTube give me a copyright strike for that. Well, here we go. It's 1 week after I pitched the yeast in this stuff, and it is definitely done fermenting. Let me get rid of that. Put that somewhere. There. Now, you remember that dough cap that was in there? It's completely gone. It's settled to the bottom. There's still a few bubbles coming up, but that's not fermentation. That's just CO2 that's trapped on the bottom that's slowly working its way up. But as you can see, it's all nice and thin now. As I stir that around, you can see that I'm releasing some of that stray CO2 that's left down there. But it is definitely done fermenting now after 7 days. At this point, I can no longer use that refractometer to check the sugar level in it to make sure that it's all been eaten up, because the alcohol in there will screw up the readings on the refractometer. So what I'm going to have to do is drain all this off into the still, which is actually back there, and then use a hydrometer. This is a low range hydrometer made for wine, beer, things like that, but I can't use it in here because, as you can see, it's sitting in there crooked. That means it's ran into the mash. So gotta drain everything out of here and then put the hydrometer in the still to read the alcohol level. It should be reading, as far as the sugar goes, like 0 right now. But if I try to get a reading with the refractometer, I'll still get a reading of like 8, and there's no way it's got a Brix level of 8 after 7 days of fermentation. So I'm going to drag this out of here, go pitch it up on the stove, and put the hose in the still and start draining it off. Be right back. Okay, we are back. Got this thing up on the stove. We'll crack this open so it has some ventilation in there. So there's that, and then this down here, that's the body of my still. And yes, go ahead and laugh at my Charlie Brown rug. They look better on the Amazon website. Anywho, if you're familiar with a farm, then you're probably familiar with what that thing is. That's a stainless steel milk can, 5 gallons. And the company that makes these, they just get stainless steel milk cans and modify the top of them, put a 2-inch common still fitting on there to put any kind of a evaporator or reflux column on there that you want. So it's not like stills are uber complicated or high tech. They can be as simple or as complicated as you want them to be. I like keep it stupid simple. I know everyone else says keep it simple, stupid. No. No. Keep it stupid simple. So I got one of these with a shotgun condenser that comes up and curls off to the right. It's what, 304 stainless steel, the heavy shit. Same thing that's made out of. So it was like $360, but I think I've gotten more than my money out of it by now. But what we're going to do here, it's got a lock on it. We're just going to crack that and let it slowly drain off. I'm going to let this drain off all night long so that any moisture that's trapped in the mash itself has a chance to fully drain out. And the amount of liquid that's in there, that should bring my still up to about 4 gallons or 4.5 gallons, something like that. I don't want to fill it up all the way because when you're distilling, you need a little bit of headspace on top for, for things to evaporate and turn into steam before they go up into the condenser. Otherwise, you'll just be sending bubbles of mash juice into your condenser, and you'll just make a mess. Now, like I said, I use a shotgun condenser on this. I don't use a reflux column. I was going to get one, and I checked out the price on those, and I found that it was cheaper just for me to get, well, that thing next to those little barrels, that's called an air still. It only holds about a gallon. And when you're distilling that much mash, you're going to get about 1 gallon of pure alcohol. So I could have went with a reflux column on top and done it all in one shot, but that would have been pretty close to $350 for that, whereas that air still was only $150, something like that. So yeah, it's a little inconvenient that I have to distill things twice, but I don't really fret over it. It's not a big deal. I'll do this one day, and after I have everything out of it, I'll just go dump it straight into that other still and let that one run all night, because once it stops putting out alcohol, it just stops putting out anything. You'll have the remaining water left in the still, and I've done it before. I'll leave it running all night and come out the next day, and I'll have about 140 proof. Not a full gallon, maybe about 3/4 of a gallon, but I'll have a 300 or 3/4 gallon of 140 proof alcohol. So not a big deal. Let's see, where are we at? Yeah, I said we'll just let this drain off all night, and then tomorrow I can start the distilling. I can get it started and just let it run at a slow pace. I'll show you how I get the still set up with the sink full of cooling water, and it's actually really simple. But that's it for now. We'll catch up with you tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, something like that. Okay, we're back. It's the morning after. I got all of the mash drained off, and yeah, you can kind of see it in there. It's up to about that level, which is right under 5 gallons. So I got more in there than what I was expecting. Look up here at the top. That's what you end up with. A big glob of mash. Now that's always real fun to throw out in the alley, because varmints that are out there will actually start eating that stuff. And well, the wash, that part, that's what they call that comes out of your mash, that registered at 11.8% alcohol. So yeah, when the varmints start eating that that mash, they'll walk sideways. But as you can see, it's not perfectly clear. And I know if you watch some home distillation videos on YouTube, people will go overboard with efforts to try to make that as clear as possible, with the reason being that they're afraid of scorching things, because the color that's in there, those are actually suspended solids in the wash. Well, I don't run my still hot enough to scorch anything. I find you get more mileage out of distillation if you do it low and slow, just like you're smoking something in a meat smoker. If you run your still really hot and fast, you'll get a lot of water. Steam will condense into distilled water in your distillate. So it really doesn't make any sense to me to do that. So after I get done distilling this, I'll show you how I get the still set up here in the next segment. That
the amount of alcohol that's in there should come out to be about 1 gallon at the very end, with the distilled water, in there, because you're always going to have some with what they call a pot still, something that doesn't have a reflux column. It'll probably come out to be about 110 to 120 proof. And at that point, I run it through my other still to clean up things even more. Then it'll come out to be about 140 proof. And at that point, I use fresh distilled water to knock everything back down to 80 proof, because you really don't want to drink anything higher than 80 proof. I realize some people do, the ones that drink that Bacardi 151 to show off in a bar. No. There's nothing good about that stuff. So I'll be back in a few minutes here to show you how the still is set up. And then we'll start a new video after that showing the entire distillation process. That's all. Be right back.
Okay, we're back. I got this set up on my lunch break just to get things going a little sooner. God, Larry, what are you, a day drinker? Are you drinking on your lunch break? Nope, I'm setting up a still on my lunch break. Anywho, this is the still setup. Now, I know that drawer hanging out there on the bottom looks really stupid, but the thing is, I don't have a stool that height. And that drawer just magically worked out to be that height. So, as you can see, we have a still here. This is what's called a shotgun condenser. This type of still without a reflux column, which is that one that just goes straight up in the air, this is just considered a pot still. And the way that condenser works, you have to feed cooling water through it. So I have a sink full of cold water, and on one of those tubes is a small fountain pump. Those are like $13 off of Amazon. Connects to silicone tubing. It goes in the bottom. You can't see this, but this one here is a smaller diameter than this one here. So that water is actually flowing all the way around this, going all the way up, and comes out up here. That little thing likes to kink every now and then, but it's not a big deal. It doesn't affect anything. And then the water returns there. Now, as the still runs, that water will start getting warm because, well, what's it doing? It's removing heat. And the way it removes heat is that it captures it. So every now and then you have to pull the plug on this drain and refill the sink. I would say with a 5-gallon run, I may have to, by the time I'm done running the still, I may have to refill that sink 4 or 5 times. So it's not really a big deal. As for the still, you can see that it really doesn't fit my gas stove very well. And the fire underneath isn't dead center. It's pretty close. I don't worry about it. It still works just the same. Yeah, I could use an induction cooktop, but my gas here is a flat rate. I pay the gas company $72 a month year round. So I use as much gas as I want to. So that's why I do this. I don't really see any reason in spending the money on an induction cooktop. This still has its own thermometer built in, just a plain old analog one. Yeah, it'll focus. All right. If you've watched other distillation videos, you know that methanol, which it's contained in almost anything, that's what will give you a hangover. That evaporates at 145 degrees. Ethanol, which is what you drink, of course, evaporates at 173. So what I do is I let the still run, and up until it gets to that 180 degree mark, maybe one notch below it, I don't save anything. I throw it out or I put it in another container and use it as a solvent. Damn good solvent. And then what else here? Okay, so after that heats up, steam builds up there, goes up through this, hits this cool area, condenses into a liquid, comes down to this little copper thing, which is affectionately referred to as a parrot. I guess because that thing leaning over towards that funnel looks like a parrot's beak. Not really, but that's what they call it. But what these are for is so you can, put your proofing hydrometer in there. It won't focus because I don't have a second hand to focus it with. Anywho, that'll tell you what your proof is as your distillate is coming out of the still. I let this thing run down to about 60 proof, so that hydrometer is reading 60 proof. And by the time that's done, that 1 gallon jar will be full, and with all of the water that came out along with it, it'll read, like I said, about 110 to 120 proof. As the distillate comes out of the parrot, I run it through an activated charcoal filter. These are commonly found in pet supply stores. They go in an aquarium filter. Doesn't make a difference. It's still activated charcoal. So that's just there to help remove some impurities, especially if there's any, I don't know, just odd things that get carried through the vapor, solids that might be in the wash in there. And that's about all there is to it. Like I said, I showed you, I got the fire going under the still, and it's just right below the halfway mark. And I just started that a few minutes ago. I might reach the 145 degree mark where the still starts putting out something in about, puts out the methanol, about 2 or 3 hours, maybe 3. And like I said, I'll run that up to 180 degrees here on that thermometer, and there it goes. And then I'll dump everything out that's in the jar and the parrot, and then start collecting. I know that you've probably seen other people running stills, and they do this thing that they call taking cuts, where they fill up like 1 pint jar, then another, and keep those in sequence, and then they go, oh, it tastes great here. Oh, it tastes funky here. I don't bother with that. I collect it all in one jar, and then I redistill the whole shoot and match. The other thing, it might be a novel thing for people that are just too bored, have too much time on their hands. Doesn't matter to me. I don't, I tried it once and I didn't really find any benefit to it. So I just do it all in one shot and then redistill the whole shoot and match in one shot. But that's it. That's my basic still. So we'll come back later with another clip showing it running. Okay, the thing finally started putting out about, 30 minutes ago. As you can see, there's liquid in there. That's moonshine. If I can focus on there it is. The hydrometer, you can see it's reading 130 right now, 130 proof. It started out at 140, and when it's coming out that hot, that's generally your methanol coming out. And I saved the methanol in that little bowl over there. As you can see, it's dripping down through there, through that activated charcoal filter. And I'll keep letting this thing go until that hydrometer starts reading 60 proof, and then I'm done. I don't bother trying to collect any more out of that. I realize it's still 30% alcohol in the still at that point, but what comes out of there, it doesn't matter how many times you try to redistill it, it's going to taste bad. And another guide that I can use beyond that is, okay, you know how water boils at 200 degrees. If I let this thing go up to about 199, even if I didn't have a hydrometer, I know I would be done at that point, because as that temperature goes up, you know, the alcohol content goes down. But yeah, we'll let that go, but I'll show you something here. You're probably going to think I'm nuts, but you can always tell when you have, oops, you can always tell when you have a camera that won't focus. You can always tell when you have methanol. Ethanol burns blue or clear and doesn't really have much of a smell to it. This stuff, after I took that lid off, I can smell the methanol. It does not smell good. It smells like a solvent or something, but it'll burn yellow. Now see, there's blue in there, but see those little yellow tips that come off? That proves that it's methanol. And ethanol will not have those yellow tips on it. Let's see if I can smother it. That should have smothered it. Hope it did. Anywho, back to this. So I'm going to let this go. This will be my final installment for this video. And I'll start another one after this is done, showing you how to redistill it and then process your ethanol after the fact, you know, to flavor it, age it, oak it, whatever you want to call the process. There's a number of different things that you can do to turn moonshine into a good whiskey, but I'll cover that in the next video. But this is it. This is the distillation run. So what fun. It smells like a distillery in your house. Yeah, so what's the problem? Take it easy. Until next time.